Hello, my name is Vanessa Sanchez, and I'm going to be presenting with my colleagues,
Richard Liu
and Matthew Zollinger.
And we will be presenting climate change in the Antarctic Peninsula by using paleoproxy and historical records. On the right-hand side, we can see in Figure 5 the location of the Antarctic Peninsula. Through paleoproxy and historical records, we are able to see climate change has brought significant climate shifts to the Antarctic Peninsula according to ADAM X-ray. According to A. Maestrol, J. Lopez Martinez, and F. Boyo, quote, "The Antarctic Peninsula is an encephalic Mesozoic arc formed on Paleozoic or possibly older Gondwana basement from eastward subduction of the Proto-Pacific or former Phoenix Plate," end quote. That is seen in the middle of subduction phase, which we can see on the right in Figure 1. Taking a look at the Antarctic Peninsula, old-school technology such as drilling through sedimentary layers reveals layers of sediment that reveal geologic evidence of Antarctica's history that goes back millions of years, according to www.science.org. This also allows us to determine what the temperature may have been like, which can allow us to predict the future due to current climate trends as stated by the National Park Service. Davies Betham mentions, in recent decades, temperature has shifted towards slightly warmer weather, which has had a large impact on glacial features. Flora in Antarctica currently shows how cold and dry the climate is, with very few species covering less than 1% of the region. But fossils found underneath the ice sheets uncover a whole new biome where flora and fauna thrived in a sort of polar forest millions of years ago. We are first going to take a look at marine sediment cores that allow us to have a better understanding of history, which can allow us to look into the future according to www.science.org. Marine sediment cores can be found in layers at the bottom of the ocean according to the Institute for Marine and Antarctic Studies. They are minerals and mud stacked on top of each other, forming a type of layered cake. These layers hold an abundance of history that geologists work really hard to obtain. MN X-ray mentions that by looking at these sediment layers, it provides paleoproxy evidence that allows us to pinpoint known events that occurred and creatures that existed millions of years ago. There are certain events or even creatures that mold within the sedimentary layers that are present when we drill them up and examine them, such as fossils of marine reptiles under the category of Plesiosaurus, such as the Elasmosaurus, according to Joshua Rapp-Learn. He further discusses how we can see the existence of these creatures sometime near the end of the Cretaceous period. Lastly, Rapp mentions that they seem to have weighed about 15 tons, with the diet of crustaceans and other small fish due to the small size of its teeth, as we can see in Figure 2. By discovering these creatures, we know that warmer climate had to have been present with the food that they were eating, according to Ocean Info. This allows scientists to know that the climate in the Antarctic Peninsula was warmer than what we see today due to tectonic configurations and patterns of ocean circulation many millions of years ago, as we can see in Figure 3. Discovering Antarctica states that the Elasmosaurus is an example of past climate. We will now take a deeper look at the isotopes that reveal certain characteristics in this region. Camilla K. Crocker mentions that there are chemical isotopes present in sedimentary layers that are left from shelled organisms that can allow scientists to determine how temperatures fluctuated. She further describes isotopes as separated into categories that are heavy or light. Depending on a warmer or cooler climate will tell us the amount of energy that allowed for the evaporation of these isotopes, Crocker describes. A cooler climate has less energy to evaporate these heavy isotopes, which means that a warmer climate allows for more energy to evaporate the heavier isotopes. Therefore, Crocker mentions that this will lead to the droppings of heavy and light isotopes within sedimentary layers found within the Antarctic Peninsula that can allow us to determine what the weather may have been like. For example, according to Discovering Antarctica, quote, "Where annual layers of ice can be identified, the thickness of layers indicates the yearly quantity of snowfall in the past," end quote. This shows us that dust and ash that has been squished within these layers over millions of years can tell us not only the carbon dioxide present, but how strong winds may have been and what vegetation may have been like, as we can see in Figure 4 on the left, as described by Discovering Antarctica. The isotopes that we find within these layers can tell us a lot about how temperatures have changed over millions of years, which leads us into our next topic regarding glacial features.
As we look at Antarctica, we can see the variety of glaciers, one of which can be seen in Figure 6, including cirque glaciers, tidewater glaciers, and ice streams, which can be dated back as far as 35 to 40 million years ago. These are different types of landforms that are created after a glacier retreats or recedes. From then till now, glacier erosion caused massive shifts in rock sediments which help scientists figure out the glacial direction and speed, as well as explain glacier erratics, which are rocks that are vastly different from their surroundings. All these help scientists recreate models of the past, which are important for us because we need to see how climate has changed in the past to have something to compare our current climate change rate to. Glacial erosions are not the only thing that helps scientists evidence of the past climate, but glacial striations do as well. Glacial striations are the result of sediments picked up during glacial advancement or retreat and using its sandpaper-like qualities to smoothen out and show the direction of the glacier. This, in turn, can tell the scientists whether or not the glacier was advancing, and by looking at the striations, we can get a more detailed picture of how the glaciers moved. Along with erosion and the striations caused by glaciers, we have glaciers causing moraines to form. According to AntarcticGlaciers.org, a website created by glaciologists like Bethan Davies, quote, moraines consist of loose sediments and rock debris deposited by glacier ice known as till. They may also contain slope, fluvial, lake, and marine sediments if such material is present at the glacial margin, end quote. There are many different types of moraines, and they give us different information about the climate. Figure 10 shows us the various placements of the different types of different moraines, and those placements tell us a lot of information. Another author from the same site, Jacob Bendel, a quaternary geologist, explains to us that, quote, terminal moraines, for example, mark the maximum extent of the glacial advance and are used by glaciologists to reconstruct the former size of glaciers and ice sheets that have now shrunk or disappeared entirely, end quote. Lateral moraines are another type of glacier feature that gives scientists information about climate change. From the same source, quote, the lateral moraines give us a strong indication of the balance line of the accumulation zone and the ablation zone of past glaciers, end quote. This is important because it helps tell us about glacial health. The balance line helps us determine whether the glacier is advancing or retreating, which means growing or shrinking. According to the National Snow and Ice Data Center, glacial's contribution to sea level rise during the last century exceeded that of ice sheets due to glaciers globally retreating. Lastly, ice-cored moraines are a more recent discovery and are not considered a stable moraine, but still offers much information when studied, like, surprisingly, flora.
Present-day Antarctica has a range of flora varying from moss similar to the moss in Figure 11 to vesicular plants such as Antarctic hairgrass. Due to natural processes as well as human influence, Antarctica has around 40 different invasive species now spreading throughout the continent, resulting in a heavy increase of flora that can withstand the cold temperatures, windy conditions, and lack of precipitation. Roughly 200 million years ago, Antarctica was home to an ancient biome called polar forests and contained numerous species of flora that are now preserved as fossils. Scientists and researchers continue to chip away at what they can in the dense Antarctic ice. More information is being uncovered about Antarctica's past history. Some of the fossils found on Antarctica include Glossopteris, which is an extinct tree species, a very well-preserved leaf impressions, seeds, and tall grass species. Most of these fossils have been found within the Antarctic Peninsula inside of sandstone and mudstone imprints. These fossils findings show that the climate had a drastic impact on the ancient flora that once ruled Antarctica, and the current icehouse climate has wiped out almost all vegetation due to layered ice sheets that currently sit on Antarctica. Geological and magnetic data has helped scientists learn more about Antarctica's history and how it was a part of the supercontinent called Gondwana. Around 180 million years ago, Gondwana began to split up in modern-day continents Africa, South America, India, Madagascar, Australia, New Zealand, and Antarctica separated and isolated themselves. This process, known as tectonic plates, caused the Antarctic plate to move deeper into the southern hemisphere and now sits on the South Pole. With this change in location, Antarctica's climate has also changed, becoming a cold desert with low to freezing temperatures along with a very low humidity. For approximately 34 million years, Antarctica has been covered in ice and has been almost untouched as its climate conditions are unlivable. The new cool climate has forced the flora that can adapt to perish as ice sheets cover the continent. Leading into our conclusion, within our region, the Antarctic Peninsula, the climate is similar to the rest of the continent due to its close proximity to the South Pole, but happens to be the most northern area, leading to more mild temperatures, yet still relatively cold considering what we're used to. Marine sediment core layers have led researchers to more of an understanding of past climates through a series of methods supporting the case for Antarctica's previous placement within the supercontinent Gondwana. Fossil discoveries within marine sediment cores in Antarctica have allowed scientists to analyze past climates more thoroughly as evidence continues to grow to support the polar forest beliefs. When Antarctica began to break apart from Gondwana around 180 million years ago, it led to the continent moving to the South Pole. These events led to drastic change in climate with a much drier, colder desert, where ice covers a vast majority of land, which causes regional extinction as climate became less inhabitable. The climate prior to breaking apart from Gondwana was humid with warm temperatures and rained a lot more than current day. Glaciers in the Antarctic Peninsula can be dated as far back as 40 million years ago and offer paleoproxy records for scientists to analyze previous climates, striations, and glacial moraines. Currently, the Antarctic Peninsula's climate is cold and dry while mostly covered in snow. It is also home to native moss and grass species, the only survivors in the frozen climate. As of now, researchers have speculated that Antarctica could see a jump in temperature in the next couple of decades, but no major climate change in the foreseeable future.
Now this will lead us into our bibliography.